Hello, I'm Daniel Johnson, and I'm going to be your professor this semester here at Columbia State. And as of August the 22nd, today at 8:17 in the morning, I have lived 63 years. 63 long and glorious years. And my life could be written into a novel because of the opportunities that I've had in my life. And I've done some amazing, wonderful things. And it's not because of me, but because of the blessings that have been put into my life. And I'm going to be sharing with you some of those things that have happened in my life that have been really special. And I'm going to be sharing with you some of the people who've been put into my life, who've blessed me, and who have been wonderful friends and neighbors to me. So, for the next 30 minutes or so, you're going to be celebrating with me my 63rd birthday. And I can't think of a place that I would rather be than right here with you today. So sit back and enjoy what's about to happen. Not only for my life, but for your life also. I want to tell you about my early life. I was born into a family. My dad was a preacher and my mom was a school teacher. And I had a wonderful family. My mom and dad were wonderful to me. And I was really blessed to be born into the family that I was born into. I can remember when I was born, and I know that people are going to kind of raise their eyes about this, but I can remember being born. Now I know you might find that really hard to believe, but I can do that. I can remember being born. And I can remember coming out of the womb and kind of looking around the room. Now, I don't know how I did this, but it was like something, I could see myself coming out of the womb and looking around the room. The next thing that I remember was that the doctor held me in his hands and he held me up and he slapped me on the behind. And I remember that I started crying. Now don't tell me how I remember that, but I do remember that. Then the next thing that I remember was a day later, they had taken me home from the hospital. And that night I began to cry and they were trying to put me to sleep, go to sleep, and I was crying. And so my dad took me into his arms and he sat down under this really bright lamp light. And I remember that it forced me, I couldn't keep my eyes open, and it forced me to go to sleep. Now you may think that that's impossible to believe, but I'm telling you, I remember doing that. The next thing that I remember after that was the first words that I said. And you may think, he can't do that, but I'm telling you, I remember this just as clearly and plainly. It was the day that I spoke my first words. And I remember running across the room, chasing our family dog. His name was Sandy. And I said, "Catch him, Sandy." And I can remember doing that. And I can remember the reaction that my folks had. And there was a family visitor there who were visiting with my folks. And I said, "Catch him, Sandy." And I very distinctly remember my first words. when I became a teenager, when I was about 12 years old, my family moved from around central Mississippi up to northeast Alabama, to Anniston, Alabama. And I remember we moved to a little community outside of Anniston called Hewletton, and my dad was the pastor of First Baptist Church of Hewletton. And so that was a very formative time in my life, and I had to make some decisions. And I remember the decision that I had to make. When you move to Alabama, you're going to have to choose between Alabama and Auburn. And I went the true way of faith. And all I can say today is roll tide, roll. After a few years of living in Anniston, we moved from Anniston, Alabama, back to my hometown of Laurel, Mississippi, where I was born on August the 22nd, 1953. And so we moved there, and I was in the 10th grade, the middle of the 10th grade, and I decided that I wanted to play football again, and so I joined the team. And so in the 11th grade, I played football on the team at Laurel High School. And so I went through that 11th grade year. And in my 12th grade year, I was the starting center for the high school football team. And I remember those days very distinctly. They were very good days in my life. I had a lot of great friends there in Laurel, Mississippi, which is the heart of the Free State of Jones. You've probably heard about that movie that just came out this summer. But I was born in the Free State of Jones. After I graduated from high school, I went to a community college in Ellisville, Mississippi. And if you saw that movie, The Free State of Jones, they talked very distinctly, and part of the plot was in Ellisville, Mississippi. That's where my mom lives even today. So anyway, I went to Jones County Junior College for a year and a half, and I moved to Nashville for the first time in 1973. And I stayed in Nashville for 8 months. And then I moved back, and it was in 1972 that happened. And then after that, I went back to Laurel, Ellisville area, and was with my parents, and went on to Jones County Junior College after I had joined the Mississippi National Guard. And the National Guard helped me to pay for my college at the University of Southern Mississippi. And I was a theater major at the University of Southern Mississippi in 1974 through 1976. And I graduated in 1976 from USM. And I will never forget this. My pragmatic dad told me, he said, "Son, you need to major in something that you're going to be able to make a living in." And I told him, "Daddy, this is what I love to do." And so I graduated with a BFA, a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theater from the University of Southern Mississippi. And little did I know that that very degree was going to help me later on in my adventure in life. In 1976, after I graduated from Southern, I moved back to Nashville. And so I was coming here to make my mark as a songwriter in Nashville. And So I lived here for a year and a half, and I actually wiggled my way into the music industry at that time. I met a lot of wonderful people. People like Wood Newton and Dan Tyler and a lot of other folks that I met during those years that I was here. But in 1978, I came to a point where I was having very hard time making a living, and so I moved back to Mississippi. Stayed there for a year, and I came to the decision that I wanted to go on a mission trip. So I went for 2 years, from 1979 to 1981. I went to Bangladesh and lived in Bangladesh for 2 years. If you don't know anything about Bangladesh, it's the poorest country on the face of the earth at that time. And I want to tell you, it changed my life as a person to go and to have that kind of an experience. After Bangladesh, I came home. I stayed at home for a year in Mississippi working in radio and in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And then in 1982, I moved to Fort Worth, Texas, where I went to pursue my master's degree in communication. And it took me 3 years to get it. At that time, I worked at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and worked in the news room there. At that time, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, they won a Pulitzer Prize while I was there, not because of me, because of some wonderful reporters that we had there. And so anyway, one experience led to another. Eventually I moved back to Mississippi for a year and a half to work in the newspaper industry. And I came in 1989. I was working in Greenwood, Mississippi, and at a newspaper there, the Greenwood Commonwealth. And I left there to come to Nashville to work for the Nashville Banner. And so I've been living here in Nashville since 1989. And I've had some really wonderful, awesome opportunities to happen for me. I'm going to let you meet some of my friends, and they're going to tell you about some things that happened in their lives and in my life. First, I want to introduce you to my good friend, Glenn Fox of the Fox Brothers.
I have been knowing Daniel Johnson probably over 20 years, probably longer than most of you all have been alive. But Daniel has been a real good friend of mine over the years, and he's a singer, he's a musician, and of course, as you all know, he's a teacher, and he's a songwriter. And this is my wife Beverly here. She's with us tonight, and we're celebrating Daniel's birthday here at Longhorn in Brentwood. But what I was wanting to tell you is that one time, years ago, we were performing at the Florida Strawberry Festival, and we were needing someone to sing bass. And although Daniel had never sang bass in his life, he did agree to come and sing with us for 11 days, 3 shows per day at the Florida Strawberry Festival. And Daniel learned how to sing bass during that time. Hopefully you can get him to do some of these low notes for you. But we needed him to do a really low C. Those of you who are musically inclined know what I'm talking about. We were trying to get him to sing a low C at the end of a song called How Great Thou Art. So he tried, and he was really having having a rough time with it. So the sound engineer decided that if my brother would hit a really low C on the bass guitar and turn it up at the same time that Daniel was going down for this low C, that we could get about the same effect. And it must have worked, because we got standing ovations every day on that song, and people came up and said that Daniel was the best bass singer that they had ever heard. They didn't know it was with the help of the bass guitar. Later on, when we left Florida, we stopped at a truck stop, and Daniel was always known to be the person that was the last one to get back up on the bus when we would leave after we would get through at the truck stops. And so we stopped at a truck stop, and luckily we had rented a van also for some of the wives to come down and to see us during the Florida Strawberry Festival while we were in Florida for a few days. But anyway, on the way back, we stopped at a truck stop, and of course Daniel didn't get back up on the bus, and so we got back. Everybody was back up on the bus. The bus left. We didn't realize that Daniel wasn't on the bus with us, and we started going down the interstate, only to find out that Daniel earlier had ran down the ramp. Luckily it was downhill, and he ran down the ramp trying to catch the bus, but the van, he got into the van. So later on the van passed the bus, and they put a sign out that said, "Where's Daniel?" And we were like, oh my goodness, we have left Daniel at the truck stop. But he did get a ride. I will have to say that Daniel Johnson is a survivor. Although I have some funny stories about Daniel Johnson, I will have to say that Daniel is one of my best friends, and he has helped me a lot with a lot of different things with our career. He's helped with booking, he's helped with media, and just all kinds of things. And I tell you, he and his wife Teresa just mean a whole lot to us and to our family, and Daniel will always be a Fox brother.
Hi, I'm Wood Newton. I met my friend Daniel Johnson back in 1977, and we both got into jogging at the same time. So he would come over to my house over near David Lipscomb College, and we would go jog a couple of miles on the track. One morning we were walking across the street, and then times were kind of tough back then, so every dollar counted, but we were walking across there, and I found a $20 bill, and I took Daniel to McDonald's and bought his breakfast that morning. Hey, and since then we've remained friends and have written many songs that I'm really proud of. But I'm also very proud of a project we have done on the songs of the Civil War called the Soldier Songs, and had the pleasure of performing that at quite a few venues, Columbia State, Jackson State, and over in my home state of Arkansas at the old State House, the old state capitol. But anyway, he's a good man, and I really I'm glad to know him and call him my friend.
One of the great things that I did this year, in 2016, was on January the 4th, I got together with my friend Wood Newton and Mike Loudermilk, and we sat down and we wrote a wonderful song, and I want to share it with you right now. It's called Mary's Very First Christmas.
teenage girl from Galilee. It was prophesied and meant to be. The angel Gabriel brought the news. Don't be afraid of what I say to you. You'll bring forth the Holy One, Jesus Christ, God's only Son. A virgin birth that some won't understand, but his message will spread throughout the land. It was Mary's very first Christmas. There were cries of pain and tears of joy when she gave birth to a baby boy who came into this world to save us. For her gift of impure selfish love, let us thank the Lord above. For Mary's very first Christmas. This humble servant could only guess where she was chosen to be blessed. She praised our Lord's holy name. This troubled world was forever changed. Now let's sing a birthday song to a life we know goes on and on, because he gave himself for you and me. We'll forever celebrate the peace. It was Mary's very first Christmas. There were cries of pain, tears of joy when she gave birth to a baby boy who came into this world to save us. For her gift of pure, unselfish love, let us thank the Lord above. For Mary's very first Christmas. For her gift of pure, unselfish love, let us thank the Lord above. For Mary's very first Christmas.
In 2004, I began working full-time at Columbia State. I was hired as an instructor of speech communication at Columbia State. And at that time we were living in, my wife and I were living in Nashville. And so we moved after the semester began. The fall semester of 2004, we moved to our home in Spring Hill. And it's a perfect location because I teach classes at both the Franklin campus and at the Columbia campus. And I have taught in Lewisburg and in Lawrenceburg. But it's a centrally located place where I live. And I have some wonderful neighbors who live across the street from me, Jack and Faye Shaw, and I want to introduce them to you right now.
This is Jack Shaw and his dear wife, Faye Shaw, who lives across the street from our wonderful neighbor, Daniel Johnson, and his dear wife, Teresa Johnson. We have lived across the street from Dan for about 10 years. It is very interesting how we have met across the years. And I want to tell you a little bit about this story. Also, I want to say that I have a phrase that I want to share with you and with the class and with Mr. Johnson. God gave us memories so that we could have roses in December. And every time I see Dan or Teresa, I'm reminded of the wonderful relationships that we've had across the years. It was a little while living in the community that we would meet Daniel and Teresa. The way that we actually met was that one day I came home from doing whatever I do. And getting here, I saw that my flag had been dropped on the ground, had been blown over literally. And I went around the front, and my flags had been picked up and folded very nicely. And in reading the message that my friend Daniel had left really was important. He said, I came home the other day and I saw that your flags had fallen on the ground. And he said, I just could not allow that to happen without picking these flags up and taking care of them. And so that's the way that we would meet. The next day, Faye and I were out in the front yard cleaning up a little bit, and Mr. Johnson was out front. And my wife said to me, there's that neighbor across the street who folded our flags. Why don't you go over and meet him? So I did. When I got over, almost the time we spoke, I felt like that we had known each other for a long, long time. But anyway, we did begin to talk. We shared our lives somewhat together, finding out that I had been a minister and also a teacher, and Daniel had also been a teacher for a good number of years of his life. And we just really began to talk more and more and more about different things that made our lives very, very important. And at the end, I said, well, you don't know how important it has been for us to meet you and Teresa and share our lives with each other as neighbors. And from that day on, Daniel and I have been very wonderful friends. He's the most wonderful neighbor I've had in many a day. He would just do anything for me that I needed. And in the process of us working together in this fashion, I also had taken a course in gardening, and I had asked Dan later on if he knew anything about gardening. He said no, he didn't. And so we began to share our knowledge somewhat about gardening. And I told him I really would like to teach him how to garden if it'd be okay with him. Well, he fell for that. And we began to do gardening work together. And I want you to know today that Daniel is an excellent gardener. And I think he's going to be a top flight one. And we have shared our little piece of ground together. I've shared mine in my backyard, and Daniel has built him a nice little garden in the back. And we have been doing gardening now for at least 3 or 4 years together. And we have shared our gardening together, and we have shared our work and told and how we were going to do this or that the following year. And I want you to know that Daniel has been so helpful to me. He has helped me when I didn't feel well, and we would do things together. Well, to make a long story short, Dan and I have really become great neighbors. And I really love he and Teresa and all the things that we have shared together over these few brief years. God bless him and all his work. And I want to tell you young people that you have a great teacher here, someone who cares for you, someone who will work hard to make you a wonderful student and learn a great deal in life. So when you come into his class, you can thank the Columbia State College, and you can thank other people that have known him, and know that you have a wonderful person standing at the pew talking to you about this or that or the other. So good day, and we hope maybe to meet all of you someday. Thank you. Bye.
I'm one of the few, if not the only, professor at Columbia State who married a Columbia State student. Now, she wasn't a Columbia State student when I married her, but she became a Columbia State student. And I want to introduce her to you right now. I know you're going to enjoy meeting her.
We know that you're going to love the music and the ministry of Daniel and Teresa Johnson. Would you make welcome the Pearly Gates?
Sky turned black one Friday afternoon. They took Jesus' body to the tomb. The soldiers rolled the stone into place, but soon God would roll that rock away. He left no stone unturned. He came from up above to really prove His love. He left no stone unturned. He left no stone unturned. He made a sacrifice to pay salvation's price. He left no stone unturned.
Okay, all you Baptists out there can get up and do a little Baptist boot scooting if you want to.
Like a child was lost in a cold dark cave, I thought I'd never see the light of day. I stumbled through the dark helplessly, but then Jesus came and rescued me.
Ah, yes, He did.
He left no stone unturned. He came from up above to really prove His love. He left no stone unturned. He left no stone unturned. He made a sacrifice to pay salvation's price. He left no stone unturned to pay salvation's price. He left no stone unturned.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord, He did.
Well, if you haven't realized it by now from her singing, she ain't from around here, okay? I met my wife, my beautiful wife, when I was on a mission trip over in Rome, Italy in 1996. And the Lord just put my eyes on this lady, and I couldn't take them off of her. And so anyway, we were there for 7 days, and I was at her church, and I left on a Thursday, and so I come back to Nashville, and about 2 weeks after I came back to Nashville, I received a postcard, and on that postcard it said, "Call me." And folks, I want to tell you something. If you owned stock in Ma Bell at that hour, you made a huge profit, because I got on the telephone and we began to court by phone and by fax. And a year later, on October the 15th, she came over here in October the 15th, 1997, and we were married on October the 17th, 1997. And I want to introduce to you my beautiful Italian wife, Teresa Johnson. You remember I told you that my daddy told me when I was attending the University of Southern Mississippi, son, you need to major in something that you can get a job in. Well, in 2001, my dream of becoming a professional actor came true.
Stop your sniffing. I'm only gonna hit you once. Well, when? Now!
Down now, let's go.
You guys, we don't have much time. We can no longer wear the uniform of a soldier. We forfeited that right. And that includes me. I disobeyed an executive order. I violated my duty as a commanding officer. And 8 men paid a catastrophic price. It's a mistake not easy to live with. So here I am, just like you, a convicted criminal. The only difference between you and me is I know I'm guilty. So we're packed away here as prisoners. And one thing is certain. Our captors have the power. They can try to humiliate us. They can beat us. They can lock us away in a dark hole for days on end. But there's one thing they cannot do. They cannot take away from us who we are. And we are soldiers.
Yeah.
That's right. And it is the one thing that gives us a chance in here. And that nobody can ever take away.
Yeah, that's right.
The Uniform Code of Military Justice. Grounds for removal of a stockade or disciplinary barracks commander. 1. Dereliction of duty. 2. Criminal malfeasance. 3. Non-compliance with procedural rules. 4. Making false official statements. 5. Conduct unbecoming to an officer and gentleman. 6. Cruelty and maltreatment of persons under his command. 7. Command failure resulting in loss of control of facility. Gentlemen, I propose that we seize control of this facility.
One of the greatest things that I've ever learned in my 63 years of living here on this earth is the fact that even though this whole video has been about me, in reality, it hasn't been. It's been about others. And that's how I live my life. Life is not centered around me. It's centered around others. And the great thing is that I am someone else's other. In other words, you can't be egocentrical in your life. You have to reach out and share your life with other people. And that's what communication is. It is the finding and sharing of common meaning. And that's what I try to do. I try to find people who come into my life and share my life with them and have them share their lives with me. And that's been a great secret that I've discovered in my life. You know, you have started on a journey, and our lives have intersected together. And I'm going to tell you that my life is not going to be the same because I have met you as a student. And your life is not going to be the same because you have met me as a professor. And there's going to be things that happen because our lives have been brought together. Now you may think that, you know, you were just taking this class because you were fulfilling a credit. But I want you to know that I don't look at life that way. I believe that you have been brought into my purview, into my presence, and I have a responsibility for you to teach you to be the very best communicator that you possibly can be. And we're going to do that in a lot of different ways this semester. And it's going to be a wonderful semester. Now, I know a lot of you are really afraid of this class, and some of you have delayed taking this class because of your fear of this class. But I want to tell you, I am here to help you. And I'm going to help you overcome those fears. And all you have to do is you have to trust me, to know that I know what I'm doing. And I'm going to help you in this process. And I'm going to give you the opportunity just about every day in the class in some way or the other to learn how to express yourself and to become a better public speaker. And not only just be a public speaker, but to be a better communicator in your life. And this can be a wonderful time in your life if you'll let it be. But that's the key to this. You have to let it be that. I can do my part of it, but I can't do your part of it. So I want you to trust me and trust that I always have your best interest at my heart, no matter what my exterior may seem to be. In my heart, the deepest part of my heart, I'm for you, and I want the very best for you. And I'm going to do the very best that I can to help you develop and become a better communicator in your life. Thank you for being a part of this today, and I know that we have some great times ahead. And I want you to know, I'm going to tell you this every class period, that I love every one of you, and I want the best for your lives.